TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Palestinian Islamists launched a barrage of rockets from the Gaza Strip towards Israel's southern communities, prompting Israeli retaliatory strikes against Hamas installations in the Palestinian enclave. Thousands of Israelis rallied in support of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at Tel Aviv's Museum Plaza last night under the title "To Protect the Country and Hold the Coup." U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo condemns the Islamic Republic of Iran for human rights abuses that includes the blatant use of violence against its own citizens who sought to protest against the regime's poor economic management. Palestinian Islamists launched a barrage of rockets from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip towards Israel's southern communities. Rocket alert sirens were sounded across the city of Sderot, forcing its residents to find shelter within 15 seconds per the instructions of the IDF Home Front Command. The IDF spokesperson's unit confirmed that 2 of the rockets managed to cross into Israeli airspace. One of the incoming projectiles was immediately intercepted by the Iron Dome aerial defense system, while a second exploded in an uninhabited area. A third rocket apparently failed to cross into Israel and consequently exploded within the jihadist-infested enclave. In response to the indiscriminate Palestinian rocket fire, the Israeli Air Force conducted a series of retaliatory strikes against terror targets that belong to the Islamist Hamas organization, which rules the Gaza Strip. Among the installations that were targeted, the IDF said it destroyed a weapons manufacturing site in the southern Palestinian enclave. The Israeli military further cautioned Hamas that it holds it responsible for all terror-related events transpiring in the Gaza Strip and emanating from it, while further underscoring that Hamas will bear the consequences for actions against Israeli civilians. It is important to note that rocket alert sirens were also sounded in the southern city of Ashkelon around midnight. Nevertheless, it appeared to be a false alarm. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Naftali Bennett declared that Jerusalem's policy vis-à-vis an incoming missile that missed its target is the same as its policy for a missile that scores a direct hit. Subsequently, also responding to last night's rocket fire, incumbent Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed that if someone in the Gaza Strip thinks that he can rear his head after Operation Black Belt, he was seriously mistaken. Netanyahu highlighted in a written statement that Israel will retaliate firmly for any attack against it. Turning now to Tel Aviv, where thousands of Israelis participated in a rally of support for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the city's Museum Plaza last night. The protest was held under the title "To Protect the Country and Hold the Coup" in the wake of Attorney General Avichai Mendelblatt's decision to indict Prime Minister Netanyahu, the longest-serving Israeli premier in the 7-decade history of the Jewish state.
All these inquiries, which take 4 years, were supported by the TV networks, and they really influenced the results of the elections. We protest against it, and we think that judicial and law enforcement should not interfere in politics.
Contrary to the organizers' initial assessments that tens of thousands would flock to the demonstration, only some 15,000 Israelis attended the rally. Furthermore, in spite of repeated calls by Netanyahu's bureau for members of his ruling Likud party to attend the demonstration in support of their leader, the majority of Likud ministers and Knesset members chose not to attend. The only senior Likud officials who attended the event were Sports and Culture Minister Miri Regev and Knesset member Miki Zohar. In a speech to the rally, Zohar claimed that Israel's law enforcement agencies have fallen victim to the country's political left and vowed not to allow lies to prevail over the truth. He further condemned the investigations and judicial process against Netanyahu as a tainted attempt to topple the prime minister.
חקירה מעוותת, חקירה מלוכלכת, חקירה שקרית כדי להפיל ראש ממשלה.
Alongside calls for the prosecution of the state prosecutor and relevant police authorities, Minister Miri Regev underscored that the rule of law is not above the law. She stressed in her speech to the rally that while there are judges in Jerusalem, everybody, including those judges, are equal under the law. She emphasized that the citizens of Israel and not the judicial system will determine who leads this country. In response to the harsh criticism against Israel's judicial authorities and the police, Attorney General Avichai Mendelblit condemned those statements as baseless slander. Speaking at a legal conference in the southern Israeli city of Eilat, Mendelblit rejected the criticism against the law enforcement establishment and voiced his shock over some of the statements made.
אני שומע ביטויים שאין להם מקום בשיח הציבורי, שמכוונים כלפי מערכת אכיפת החוק וכלפי בכירים מסוימים בתוכה. אני שומע איומים, אני שומע הכפשות חסרות בסיס, בעיניי זה פשוט מזעזע.
It is important to mention that as a result of the growing public criticism against certain individuals of the country's law enforcement authorities, bodyguards were assigned to two of the lead prosecutors involved in the Netanyahu probes. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu's main political rival, Blue and White Chairman Benny Gantz, criticized the demonstration of support for the Prime Minister. He insisted that while the right to demonstrate and freedom of speech are the oxygen of democracy, in a healthy democracy a prime minister would not organize a demonstration against the law enforcement system over which he presides. Gantz also called on Netanyahu in his statement, instead of organizing demonstrations in Tel Aviv against law enforcement agencies, Netanyahu would do well to focus on restoring security to the residents of southern Israel. Turning now to Washington, where U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo condemned the Islamic Republic of Iran for human rights abuses that includes the blatant use of violence against its own citizens who sought to protest against the regime's poor economic management.
President Trump and I have been following closely the protests that have recently broken out across that country. The Iranian people are once again on the streets because of the regime's poor economic management. And instead of addressing their grievances, Tehran has responded with violence and by blaming those outside of the country.
Pompeo revealed that almost 20,000 messages, notes, videos, and pictures of the regime's abuses were sent by Iranian protesters to the United States in a joint effort by the Trump administration and the Iranian people to expose the true nature of the Ayatollah regime, which consequently establishes a legal basis for additional sanctions against Iranian officials who are responsible for human rights-related abuses.
Last week, the regime shut down the internet to prevent the truth about the protests from getting out. I asked Iranians to share their messages with the United States so we could expose and sanction the abuses of the Iranian regime. We've received to date nearly 20,000 messages, videos, pictures, notes of the regime's abuses through Telegram messaging services. I hope they will continue to be sent to us. We will continue to sanction Iranian officials who are responsible for these human rights abuses, just like we did last week to Iran's Minister of Communications.
Secretary Pompeo further underscored that the cruelty of the regime knows no bounds.
The Iranian regime also continues to export cruelty outside its own borders. Last week, an Iranian dissident, Masoud Malvi, was assassinated in Istanbul after he defected to Turkey from Iran. The killing of Mr. Malvi is yet another tragic example in a long string of suspected Iran-backed assassination attempts outside of Iranian soil.
The Islamic Republic's foreign ministry did not immediately react to TV7's request for a response. Thank you for watching us. You can also watch us at tv7israelnews.com or tv7.fi. For any comments, please send your emails to israelnews@tv7.fi. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our supporters, as your financial donations and prayers are the reason TV7 Israel News are made possible. I'd like to keep encouraging you. Pray for the peace of Israel and the salvation of the people, as well as the peace of Jerusalem. I'm Jonathan Hassan. Have an Erev Tov, and I will see you again tomorrow at the same time.